I didn't know that was going to be a question.
I told you I threw your curveball.
Yeah, you're well, look, President Trump's going to be our nominee. I think he's going to win. He's the one president, certainly in my lifetime, who did more what he said he was going to do than any president I've ever seen. And I love the line. When we talk about the weaponization of government, just look at President Trump and the escalation that the left and the government have taken to going after this guy. I mean, it started with the spying on his campaign, then it was the Mueller investigation, then it was impeachment, then it was a raid on his home, then it was the 14th Amendment. It's 4 different, 2 state cases, the 2 federal cases, all the indictments. It's gotten ridiculous, but he has a great line, and you've all heard him say it. He says, they're coming after me because I'm fighting for you. And that is so true, and that's why I so appreciate President Trump. So, yeah, let's get behind President Trump and let's win this thing.
Get this thing on, huh?
Yep. He actually changed it. When we were out in Iowa, he changed it. We were at this nice rally he did when it was like minus 20 degrees out there, and he still had people showing up to hear him. But he changed the line. He said, they're coming after my freedom because I'm fighting for yours. And I told him, I like that even better because it is so true, so accurate, what we see with the federal government, these agencies, what they're doing to we the people. And he is fighting for us. And so let's get behind him and make sure he wins in November.
I'm not sure if Jimmy Kimmel understood what the title of this conversation is. What you talking about, Willis? Bonnie Willis. Did she get back to you today?
Yeah, we subpoenaed her. Not yet. I just talked to our staff.
Wait, is she supposed to get back to you today?
Yeah, she's supposed to get documents to us.
Well, did you hear from her boyfriend?
We haven't. So I was talking about this in the office, and I said Fonnie Wade, and it was like a Freudian slip, it's Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade. So no, we haven't heard back from her yet. We'll see what we get from her. But there's a whistleblower in her office who we have talked to, the committee staff. Yeah, and she, the whistleblower, I think she's like 4'11", but Fonnie Willis had 7 police escort her out when she fired this lady, because this lady raised the concern that Miss Willis was not spending federal funds and not following the rules of the grant and the grant dollars in the appropriate manner. So she raised this concern, and then Fonnie Willis fired her. She's now talking with our office, and we'll see where that goes. And that's why we subpoenaed for records and documents related to this. We'll see what we get. There's still a few hours left in today. She also was interesting. Instead of accepting service on the subpoena, she made us send the U.S. Marshals. Even though our office had talked with her office, we've had correspondence back and forth, she made the U.S. Marshals take the subpoena there. So go figure. This is Fonnie Willis, and we all saw her attitude on display when she took the stand a few weeks ago.
I thought it was a skit, but I think it actually was real life.
It was real.
We sent out a tweet that said, we didn't invite Fonnie Willis to CPAC, but there is a Fonnie sandwich with a chaser of Grey Goose vodka if you have enough ready cash in your pocket.
Yeah, the comedy routine from Mr. Slap coming out today. That's awesome.
It's been a long year, Jim.
Yeah, well, but we appreciate what you do. We appreciate what CPAC has meant for conservative principles for a long, long time.
Thank you. It means a lot.
So do they.
You're a hero to a lot of us for a lot of reasons, but you have a 100% rating in our scorecard. You've had, as you have now, in positions of importance, big titles, just always do the right thing. And you always vote right. Well, how come you don't wander off and get this kind of Potomac fever like everyone else gets?
I mean, you're being kind. But
is it because you're not a senator?
There's lots of good senators, too. I appreciate that. Look, I say this all the time. You probably all heard me say it. I think we make the job way too complicated. You're a member of Congress, you're in public office. Your objective is really pretty basic. What'd you tell the voters you were going to do when you put your name on the ballot, you ran for the office? If they, in fact, elect you, go do what you said. Go fight for the things you told them you were going to. That's how this compact works between the elected officials and the people we get the privilege of representing. And I try to remember that when I think about the people in West Central, North Central Ohio, and the 4th District.
Anybody here from Ohio? There we go. By the way, the room looks pretty full.
Yeah.
Room looks pretty full. I wonder why.
Yeah.
I think you're liked.
Yeah.
Mercy, who's sitting over there, worked for President Trump in the White House, and Mercy and I worked in the Bush White House together. That's a whole other story. But the White House counsel is one of the most important jobs in that White House. By the way, whenever you're the White House counsel, if you work for a Republican, everyone knows who you are. There's stories constantly about all the legal turmoil about every Republican president. I don't know if people realize that Joe Biden has a White House counsel. He's pretty much anonymous. I've never read stories about him. I'm reading that his office is coordinating and meeting at least with Fani Willis, with her then boyfriend, meeting with the folks who are going after President Trump in New York.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we know who this is? And why is he getting away with what I view as, this is me, not you, as an American citizen? It looks like there's a lot of coordination from the White House on running cover on Hunter Biden and Biden Incorporated and the attack, this persecution on President Trump.
Well, yeah, Nathan Wade, the guy from Fani Willis's office, he's supposedly had contact with the White House counsel's office, with the White House, with the Justice Department, with the January 6th committee, all that going on. It looks
shouldn't they be running an independent
Well, you would think.
investigation?
Now, I'm sure he's entitled to some of that information, but we want to know how this is all played out, particularly when you think about the fact they're going after their political opponent and the history I just talked about that started clear back in 15 and 16 when they started spying on his campaign. By the way, based on a confidential human source who we now know lied to him, nothing seems to happen to Christopher Steele. I'm sure the audience remembers that name.
Yep.
Now we have this confidential human source who Christopher Wray told us, filled out this 1023 form the FBI did. Christopher Wray told us that this guy, we can't give you the 1023 form. This guy has been a 14-year confidential human source. We've paid him. He's respected. We don't want to risk his safety. And now they arrest the guy, not once, but twice. I don't know. Maybe the guy did lie. But it sure is quite a contrast for Christopher Steele can give false information about President Trump, and he continues to get paid. This guy, this Mr. Smirnoff, can give false information. What they've said is false information, and he gets arrested. Double standard again.
I might just be slow on the go, but I don't think I'm just going to fall for the next Russian collusion immediately. I'd probably wait for proof.
Yeah. 2016, it was Trump-Russia. Of course, Mueller told us that didn't happen. 2020, it was, the laptop's a Russian information op. 51 former Intel officials signed that statement. Turned out to be baloney, and now here we go again, round 3. Maybe it's a case, but sure seems strange to me.
What's going to happen with Hunter?
Well, he testifies next week in our deposition, so we'll have some questions for him. We continue to dig into our work. One thing that I would say for sure is, I say this all the time, there are 4 fundamental facts that will never change. Fact number 1, Hunter Biden gets put on the board of Burisma, gets paid $1 million a year.
But he is an energy expert. You have to give him that. Right?
Fact number...
He has a lot of energy.
You beat me to the punch on fact number 2. Fact number 2, he's not qualified. He said so himself in an interview, I think, with ABC News. Fact number 3, Hunter Biden meeting with the CEOs of Burisma. They ask him, can you weigh in and help relieve the pressure we are under from the prosecutor in Ukraine? He calls D.C., he calls his father, according to his business partner, Devin Archer, when we deposed him. Fact number 4, 3 days after that phone call, Joe Biden goes to Ukraine, conditions the release of our tax dollars, your tax dollars, on the firing of that prosecutor. That went against, by the way. Those 4 facts are, Joe Biden bragged about the last thing. He bragged about doing that. Those 4 facts go against what the State Department said they needed to happen. They'd send a letter to the prosecutor saying, you're doing a good job. 2 months before, they said the Interagency Policy Committee says, Ukraine warrants this $1 billion. Joe Biden changed it. What caused him to change it? Could it have been the phone call from his son asking? And Joe Biden gets this guy fired who's applying the pressure to the company that Hunter Biden sits on the board of, making $1 million a year. That's not supposed to be how things operate, but those facts are fundamental. So regardless of what the Democrats say about this confidential human source, those facts don't change.
I just want to go back to the previous question and say the White House counsel is Ed Siskel. I'm not accusing him of doing anything wrong, but I do think there's a lot of wrongdoing associated with the attempt to imprison Joe Biden's general election opponent. And I think we ought to know who the man is. I think we ought to answer some questions. And I want to know why the Biden administration and the Biden White House doesn't recuse itself from questions concerning their own campaign. It seems like a very basic thing. And I think that the people of CPAC, let's start asking questions about Ed Siskel. You agree? You have all these victims. You went back through Russiagate, Russian collusion, what went on during that 2016 campaign. Mercy and I know this. We've had a lot of calls over the last several years from dear friends who are quietly bankrupted, quietly investigated, quietly having their lives destroyed, quietly having their professional lives destroyed, all because they want to wear a red hat.
Yeah.
That's the reason. I have an interesting question for you, something for you to consider. Until all those people get their legal fees back, I think of KT McFarland, who's on my board and spent 7 figures of her money just answering basic questions. Until all these victims, we have these J6 victims who are in the crowd, others, until they were made whole financially by our government who wronged them, and by DOJ in particular, won't the wrongdoing just keep going on and on and on? No one seems to go to jail.
Now, there is some positive, because we focused on this, I mentioned earlier, this weaponization of the very agencies that are supposed to serve we the people that have been turned against us. So this weaponization.
And it's more than 1 or 2, right?
Right. It is, there have been some positives. So we pointed out a year or so ago that the Department of Homeland Security had set up the Disinformation Governance Board. Remember this? Right? As if some agency can tell you what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say in a country where we have the First Amendment. But they were attempting to do this. We made such a big issue of this. You guys helped all kinds of conservatives around the country that they got rid of that board. So there's sometimes just by drawing attention to the ridiculous things that are going on, you can make a difference. Another example, the IRS announced 4.5 months ago that they would no longer be making unannounced visits to American citizens' homes. And Danny Werfel, the commissioner, that's a good thing, yeah. Danny Werfel, the commissioner at the IRS, said, well, we're doing this because we're concerned about the safety of our agents. Baloney. Baloney, they're doing it because we caught them knocking on Matt Taibbi's door at the very moment he was testifying in front of the Select Committee on the weaponization of government. Now, you can't make this up. He's testifying, talking about, and Democrats are asking him about to reveal his sources, attacking First Amendment free press rights. While he's explaining to them why you can't do that in this country, why he didn't have to divulge his sources, the IRS agent was knocking on it. It turned out they actually owed him money. It wasn't the other way around. Go figure. So sometimes just by highlighting these things, you can have an impact. We just got to keep it up. And then we're also going to be focused on legislation, particularly where the government is involved in censoring American speech. You have a cause of action. We got legislation that Mr. Bishop and Ms. Hageman are going to introduce on the Judiciary Committee that we think will help address this situation. By the way, that is the most important thing. All this other crazy stuff that the left has done, we can recover from it all. But if they take away our First Amendment liberties, I always tell folks, we have 5 rights under the First Amendment. Your right to practice your faith, your right to assemble like we're doing today, your right to petition your government, free press, free speech. All critically important, but the most important is your right to talk. Because if you can't speak, you can't practice your faith, you can't share your faith, you can't petition your government, and you don't have a free press. And that is what they're going after. And so we are really focused on that more than anything else.
So, God bless you for that. So back when I had a little more brown hair, I did have brown hair at one point, by the way, and I worked on the Hill, President Clinton, and it was really Hillary, let's face it, she corruptly fired the travel office because she didn't like what they were doing. And the Republican majority came back and made those people whole. They gave them back their pensions. They helped them with their legal fees. What CPAC, I think, would like to do is partner with the good guys like you to make sure, not more spending, but DOJ has a lot of little slush funds over there, and they don't always go to good causes. I just think we should have some more funds over at DOJ that go after, if the United States government goes after you for years, uses every penny of your savings, or you have to hire all these expensive lawyers and go through all that process, you get down to the end, and they give you a parking ticket, I think you deserve to be made whole.
Well said, well said.
Yeah. Finally, talk about these First Amendment freedoms. By the way, freedom of the press is not the first one. Sorry, guys in the back, but they always think it's the first one. But it's a very important one.
Sure is.
Catherine Herridge, what is going on?
Well, we're trying to dig into this, but what happened here looks really, really wrong in my judgment, because they've grabbed everything. So this is her sources, her information. And that is just does not happen when you're talking about the press. We're talking about what CBS just